Alex Wolz here with Ryan Gregware, recapping a wild doubleheader between the Yankees and Mets to close out the Subway Series. We got a rain out on Friday, a game in on Saturday, 2 games in on a beautiful Sunday. First off, Ryan, how you doing first off?
Yeah, Alex, thanks for asking. Just got back from the stadium. Doing okay. Up and down day, as we'll talk about. But, it's the 4th of July. Got some good baseball, and so that's what it's all about.
Yeah, we ran into each other for a quick second. Each of us at one of the games today. You probably had a bit of a better time than I did, but still a lot of fun today. And let's recap a little bit of what happened. A lot of drama, a lot to get into. And let's start with game one. The Mets, of course, win this one 10-5, a pair of 7-inning games. You'd think they'd be shorter. Game one was 3 hours and 18 minutes. That's the way this season has been going for the Yankees. And game one was all about the pitching matchup. You have Garrett Cole, you have Marcus Stroman, a lot of eyes on this one, and particularly with the way these two pitchers have been trending as of late. And it starts off with the Mets getting the better of Garrett Cole. Dom Smith sending one out 368 feet. Not a deep one, but Cole's been giving up a lot of home runs as of late, particularly his last few starts. He had 3 his last time out against Boston and 1 starts this one off against the Mets. But the Yankees showed a lot of fight. I know you have a lot of thoughts about Kyle Higashioka getting in the lineup for Gary Sanchez, but he shows up big in the second inning, with a double to score 2. And Tim LaCostra in his Yankees debut hits a sacrifice fly, 3-1 lead for the Yankees. And it looked like things were going pretty well early. And they get another break later on in the third inning. Francisco Lindor makes a rare error, and a few things transpiring. Giancarlo Stanton ends up hitting into a double play to score a run. Now, Yankee fans are all too familiar with the double play, but this time it does get a run home, and it's 4-1 Yankees. And things look to be going pretty well, particularly with your ace on the mound. But things turn south in the fourth inning. Garrett Cole, a couple walks, and he just didn't look all that comfortable in the inning. Mets pull off a couple of singles. They start moving around the base paths, and they tie this one up a few runs later. 4-4, Jonathan Loaisiga comes in relief and gives up one of those runs as well. And it looked like the Mets were going to start pulling away in this one, but the Yankees, we got to give them credit. You mentioned it before, the comeback wins that they have, and they had one sign of it in the fifth inning as DJ LeMahieu scores on a wild pitch. It's really been a weird trend this year, the wild pitches, and they get one there. 5-4, we head to the seventh, and that's where catastrophe broke out. I mean, you can't really put it any other way. Everybody knows it by now. Aroldis Chapman gets the nod in this one, and he's been really struggling as of late. Aaron Boone gives him the nod, though. He said that he didn't want to use Chad Green too deep, wanted to save him for game 2, as Ryan, he'll get into his great outing there. But you throw Chapman out there, doesn't look great early, and Pete Alonso hits a home run. It was a slider, something that Higashioka said was a mistake. He said it was on him. They shouldn't have thrown that one. Boone also said wasn't the right pitch, and a walk, a hit batter later, and then all of a sudden Aroldis Chapman out of the game. In comes Lucas Licky in just a really tough spot. You can't criticize him too much, and the Mets just poured on 10-5 final. And Ryan, I just want to get your thoughts because you saw the catastrophe that broke out on Wednesday night against the Angels. This had a lot of similar treads to that, and it ends in a 10-5 win for the Mets.
All the parallels were there, Alex, and knowing it from the back of my mind, seeing it live, I was telling you, I was trying to warn you. We were texting throughout the game. And going into that last inning, I posed the question, do they go to Chapman here? It's been so bad. It wasn't just Wednesday. It's been the whole month of June. They do go to Chapman. Boone has confidence in his closer in game 1, and he doesn't reward him. As you said, he's absolutely nothing. We also talked about through our conversation how with Chapman right away, 3 pitches in at max, what he's going to give you. And when Pete Alonso takes that slider deep, you knew he was in trouble. Lucas Luque obviously comes in a tough spot, similar to Wednesday's catastrophe because he relieved Chapman in that one, and he gave it up also this time with first and second no outs. So I'm not going to kill Luque for that, but the decision to go to Chapman is one that a lot of people question because we talked about Chad Green came in the inning before. He only pitched 2 pitches, so he clearly was rested, but Boone went with his closer, and the struggles of Aroldis Chapman have just killed the Yankees recently. Not even just Wednesday's game. You had that game versus the Twins going for sweeps. He's blown it. He's blown a few other recently. His hot start to the year has completely vanished. His ERA is almost up to 5 now. He got named an All-Star today. Wild day for him overall. And, when you see he got named an All-Star, I don't think any Yankee fan was happy for him. Not one.
And a few notes I'll throw out there before we get over to game 2 is this is from Brian Hoke that Aroldis Chapman allowed 15 runs in his last 9 appearances, 14 earned. He only allowed 1 earned run in his first 23 appearances of the season. So such a downturn as of late. And the same thing for Garrett Cole. He's allowed as many earned runs in his last 2 starts as Jacob deGrom has allowed all season. That's from Anthony DeComo. So these are the 2 guys, as Aaron Boone said in the postgame, that the Yankees really need to be clicking on all cylinders if they're going to start turning things around. Just wasn't the case today. But game 2, a little bit of a different story. This was the cavalry showing up, and it starts with Nestor Cortes.
Yeah, so before the game, there's not a ton of notes here, but one of the things they said before the game is that I put it feels like 1978 question mark, because that's the last time the Yankees have came back from the deficit they are now in the division this late in the year to win it. So, going into this, the vibes obviously were terrible coming off, an hour or so removed from the catastrophe earlier in the day. But you have to give Nestor Cortes, the stopper, a ton of credit here. He goes 3 1/3, gives up 1 run, but he was really efficient for those first 3 innings. 7-inning game, the bullpen's taxed. Nestor Cortes has been good this year, but it was still a question. And so he left after he gave up a double, and Darren O'Day came in, gave up a 2-run shot. And so the Yankees had a 3-0 lead early in this one. It was a Gio Urshela 3-run homer in the second inning. And this inning was a very rare one for the Yankees. I tweeted it. It started off with a double, then a Ruben Odor bunt. They were stealing bases. Miguel Andujar had a walk. So a ton of things that you never see with the Yankees. And then Gio Urshela with a timely 3-run homer. It gave them that lead, and it looked like they were going to cough it up when Darren O'Day came in the fourth. He gave up the 2-run homer. He walked a few batters. And as I texted this to you, a 3-2 lead for the Yankees right now feels like a 4-run deficit. It really does. They were lucky to get out of that inning. They got a huge insurance run in the bottom of the fifth. You talked about the wild pitch in game 1. There was another huge one in game 2. He gave him a 4-2 lead. And Chad Green, after Darren O'Day came in, he was everything the Yankees could have asked. He played the hero role in this one. 3 shutout innings. None of them were taxed. He didn't give up a base runner. An immaculate inning to close it. And there was a point in I think after maybe before he even came in, Aroldis Chapman was spotted in the bullpen, and fans were going ballistic. There was no way we could have seen him in that one. And Chad Green, it wasn't for certain he would pitch his whole game. I think the first 2 innings, we were confident. It looked like Wandy Peralta would come in to close it out in the 7th inning, but Aaron Boone stuck with Chad Green after not doing it in game 1, and it paid off. A huge win for the Yankees, 4-2, as they kind of salvage this series and get on the road with, a little bit of confidence here.
Yeah, and you talk about salvage, and we've got a lot more coming about the Yankees on Nosebleeds tomorrow. You, me, and there are Mets beat reporters Dylan Balsamo, Sam Davis. But I want to wrap up by looking a little bit towards the future. You think about what this road trip has in store. You have 3 at Seattle, 3 at Houston. That's coming off getting swept by Boston, losing 2-3 to LA, and losing 2-3 to the Mets. So, Ryan, if you just think ahead here, what's your recap of what the last week has been like, and what the Yankees really need to do next week after a really interesting stretch of 2 of the worst losses you really had all season, but maybe a bright spot here to end things off?
It's tough to find a true bright spot, because this week, if you asked me last week, the bright spot was, all right, you have to win these series. You had the Red Sox. You're coming off, you have the Red Sox coming up. Obviously, that was a failure. They get swept. And then you look ahead. The Angels were a perfect team to get right, theoretically, because their pitching has been so porous, and the offense has struggled for the Yankees. In those first 2 games, the offense did hit, but then the pitching has completely fallen apart. This Mets series looked like it was going to be another similar, situation. You lose the first 2, you squeak out of game 3 with the win. So overall, this last week was a huge failure, because even 2 weeks ago, they were only 4 out of the division. They were coming off some nice series. You beat 2 out of 3 from the Royals. You sweep the Blue Jays. There's a little bit of confidence. You keep telling yourself this is where they turn it around. They didn't do so. You also this week had the players meeting by Aaron Judge called. And if before this win today, they would have been 0-4, after the players meeting, getting embarrassed, blowing huge leads. So you question the impact of that, if that is a turning point, because Alex, if we really look at it, like if that can't turn your season around, if guys coming off the IL can't turn your season around, if you have these demoralizing losses, when does the season turn around? That's why it's really hard for me to find a bright spot.
Yankees have been looking for answers all year long, and they've said they're going to stick to this core, going to stick to this team, and stick to this manager. This weekend, a really, really good test of that, and a big week coming up that's going to test it even further. And the first series coming out of the All-Star break, right back here at Yankee Stadium against the Red Sox. And if you want a litmus test of where this team is at, that's definitely going to be it. But in the meantime, a lot more coming on the New York Yankees, a lot more from Ryan Gregware, from Alex Wolz. In the meantime, this is WFUV Sports.